what happens is demand goes down. And demand goes down. Firms are reluctant to lower their prices. Nominal wages are sticky. And so output tends to decline. And when it does, we call this a recession. Right? Now, eventually, prices will fall. And as they do, right, when prices fall, wages will eventually follow, right? And when that happens, you know, when prices fall, we move to here, right? Firms, and when prices fall from here to here, firms are going to find, well, wages remain the same. And because wages remain the same and prices fell, their profitability will have declined, right? Then eventually, wages will follow. And when wages follow, then firms will expand their output. And then we'll move to here. Right? Then, eventually what's going to happen is wages will continue to fall, and output will expand back to here. And so we'll go from 1 to 2 to 3.
Where's the 3 compared to the 1?
What's that? Oh, I'm sorry. This is wrong. 1 to 2 to 3. Let me draw it over here.
Can you explain what it means that wages are sticky downward?
Wages being sticky downward and prices being sticky downward means this. That when demand goes up, there's pressure on prices to increase. And firms usually will do that. And then there is pressure on wages to increase. And then firms usually respond. But when demand goes down, what tends to be more likely is rather than cutting wages, firms tend to furlough workers. You see this all the time, right? You know, they say, okay, we're going to cut our workforce by X amount, right? You sort of see this all the time. And so they're more likely to cut workers than they are to cut wages, right? And so wages are sticky downward, and prices are sticky downward. You know, demand goes down, and firms are reluctant to reduce wages and prices. And because they are, it kind of retards the natural sort of self-adjustment elements of the economy. Because the self-adjustment elements is demand changes, price changes, nominal wages follow. Right? And when nominal wages follow price changes, then the economy adjusts back to full employment. Well, if demand goes down, prices don't fall, wages don't fall, then the natural self-adjustment doesn't occur. And the result is it takes a longer time for the economy to adjust back to full employment. Right? So they say that that's a Keynesian notion. Wages and prices are sticky downward. Now, let's draw this better over here. Just real quickly. Just a few more minutes. It's 15 more minutes. I'll get you going here in 15 minutes. Just give me 15 minutes. So we have aggregate demand, right? We've got short-run aggregate supply. We've got long-run aggregate supply. And the output is equal to full employment at long-run aggregate supply, correct? Now, what happened? Well, we had this level of prices. We were at long-run equilibrium. This is long-run equilibrium. Right? This is short-run equilibrium. This is long-run equilibrium. The economy is in equilibrium. Now, something bad happens. Something bad happens, aggregate demand goes down. Like this. Now, if wages and prices were perfectly flexible, if they were perfectly flexible, we would have started here at 1 and gone to 2. Right? If they were perfectly flexible. Correct? But they're not. Right? They're not perfectly flexible. They're not flexible in the short, in the medium at all, to some extent. And so instead of going from 1 to 2, we go from 1 to 1A. And note the difference. 2 would have been less of a reduction in output, right, than this. Right? 2 would have been less. Well, why are we here at less output? Because firms are furloughing workers rather than cutting wages and prices. Now, however, eventually this is not sustainable, right? And we're going to move to here at lower prices. Now, those lower prices are certainly going to eventually result in lower wages. Now, when those lower prices eventually result in lower wages, so when prices fall, right, and then wages follow, when wages follow, then the short-run aggregate supply curve will shift. So in the long run, we'll end up at 3. So then what's possible is 1A, why 1A? Sticky wages and prices. 2, and then 3. What's the adjustment from 2 to 3? Nominal wages adjust to lower prices, and then we go from 2 to 3. And we're back at 3, what do we have? Back to long-run equilibrium, but at a lower overall price level. Now, here's the thing. We don't like this, and we don't like this. We don't like inflation. We don't like recession. I mean, this is a recessionary situation. Why is there a recession? There is a recession because of a decline in aggregate demand. Why is there inflation? There's inflation because there's an increase in aggregate demand. Now, what can we do? Well, one thing we could do is just let this all unfold. Right? We could just let this all unfold. If we let it unfold, will it fix itself? Well, what we know is, based on this theory, in the long run, we'll get back to the natural rate of unemployment. But in this circumstance, it would be at a significantly higher price level. Now, we might not like that. Right? Do we have a higher price level? Here, we'll get back to full employment, but it might be after a lengthy and devastating and difficult recession. We don't like that. Right? So in both cases, we're saying the economy will self-correct if wages and prices are allowed to eventually fluctuate, but it might be after painful circumstances. So then the question becomes, is there any potential intervention to ameliorate the problem of too much demand or the problem of too little demand? And the answer is, we would say, that there are 2 kind of policy possibilities that some people suggest might be valuable. Now, clearly there is a dispute within macroeconomics, and I don't know how much the test will get into, and there'll inevitably be questions about this. They'll say, okay, what would a Keynesian want to do in this situation? What would a monetarist want to do? What would a rational expectationist want to do in this situation? Now, typically, one thing to remember about the Keynesian is always going to want to do something, right? So the Keynesian is going to want to do something. And what is the Keynesian going to want to do? Manipulate demand, right? Manipulate demand. If demand is the problem, then demand is the solution, right? So, okay, I'm a Keynesian, right? And I don't like this recession. Now, what do I want to do? Well, what I want to do is I want to make demand go back to where it was. It was here, now it's here, and because it's here, I don't have enough output to fully employ all resources. I want it to go back. Now, if I want it to go back, then I say I have 2 policy possibilities. One is fiscal policy, and inevitably on this test, on the free response, or in the essay part, or the objective questions, they're going to kind of say this, okay, if you were going to use an appropriate fiscal policy to fix this or that, what should you do, right? Now, fiscal policy is government manipulating the level of spending and taxation to alter